Jesus? I think we get a little better extreme than that. Who here loves Jesus? So there are a few believers in this room, right? There are a few people who say they're a follower of Christ. Another term we say is disciple of Christ. Anyone in here a disciple of Christ?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a few hands popping up. It's a great idea, a great challenge for us tonight. And I want us to look at tonight, what does it really mean to be a follower of Christ? What does it really mean to be a Christian, a little Christ, to be one of His disciples? Because that's what we're called to do. We're called to pick up our cross and follow Him. I want you to hear those words. Pick up your cross and follow Him. That doesn't sound light and fluffy, does it? I think many of us have started our journey of faith just like the 12 steps. If you do steps 1, 2, 3, and you do the 1, 2, 3 shuffle, what happens is some of you are very good dancers, and you can shuffle for a while, but eventually you're going to trip and fall flat on your face. And it's not going to work out very well, is it? And just like we do the 1, 2, 3 shuffle and the 12 steps, focusing on our recovery, we can do that shuffle in our spiritual journey and never really get to the miracle. And I want to talk about that tonight. It's time for us to actually hear Jesus' call to be a disciple, to do what He says. Most of us in this room are either in recovery or we're at least contemplating beginning that journey of recovery, right?
Yes.
So we are on that journey, and I want to tell you that you have available to you not only a process that can help you stay sober, but probably one of the best discipleship tools that exists. Probably one of the best tools that can draw you closer to God and becoming a fully devoted follower of Christ. And that is the 12 steps. Many Christians are out there and we say this prayer. We say, yes, we're a follower of Christ. Yes, we're a Christian. And there isn't a path oftentimes to figure out how do we grow in that faith and how do we start to actually act on that faith. And those of you in this room here have an amazing opportunity because there's a path that can direct you on how to do just that. I believe being a disciple of Christ is more than just saying a prayer. Saying a prayer can be extremely important. It can draw a line in the sand. We'll probably say a prayer at the end of the service tonight. But it's more than just saying, I believe. Eventually, there is a surrender and there is an action. There's an application. There's a total life transformation. It's more than memorizing a bunch of religious creeds, a bunch of don'ts. There are some do's. Some amazing do's. Being a disciple of Christ is about living a full, abundant life that helps lead others to a full, abundant life. A life that is eternally transformed. It's dying to self, it's picking up our cross, and following after Christ. In the privacy of our bedrooms, on our cell phones, I know what you're looking at, in our thoughts, in our public lives, in all of us. It's holding back nothing. He bids us to come and die. So lay down ourselves. So tonight I'm going to lay before you a quick overview of the steps. Okay, I'm going to go quick, because there's 12 of them, right? So I'm going to go quick, a quick overview of the steps, and we're going to show you how, if we work this process with the cross in mind, how this room, this town, and this world can be transformed. And I'm not exaggerating. From this room right here, the entire world can be transformed faster than you think. So, let's see here. I want just to look at this real quick. So you see on the screen, how I see steps 1 through 3 orientate us. They help us recognize the problem, what's really going on. They help us understand that we're broken and we're messed up. And I'm going to go through these in a second here. Steps 2 equip us. And step 12 sends us. It says go and do. So we're going to go through these each real quick here. So step 1 says this. Let me read this together real quick. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So we admitted we were powerless and our lives had become unmanageable. Orientates us, helps us understand the reality. So when we realize that we're powerless over alcohol or our drugs or whatever it may be, your addiction, this is the beginning of healing. When you realize how crazy your life has become as a result of your addiction, that's a great start. But when you realize that you are a broken sinner, when you realize that you're addicted to a lot more than just heroin or alcohol, when you realize that, yes, I have a disease, and as the great Billy Graham once said, we all have a terminal disease, and it's called sin. Sin is a disease of the human soul. When we realize that, this is a start of a healing that will transform not just your life, but your soul for all of eternity. Proverbs 26:11 through 12 says this. Like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. When we won't admit our powerlessness and the unmanageability of our lives, we repeat the cycle over and over and over again. There's a young girl, I woke up this morning to a message from a young girl who some of you know. And her message was, either you get me into treatment or I'm going to kill myself. Her life's unmanageable as can be, isn't it? But then she had all sorts of conditions on what type of treatment center she wanted to go to. Life's a little unmanageable, isn't it? She's not truly surrendered, is she?
No.
When we admit we are powerless, until we truly recognize the chaos and the powerlessness of our lives, you will stay sick. Step 1 is saying, I can't do this anymore. And when I do, life sucks. When I take my own will and I do it my own way, it doesn't turn out well. God, I give up. I give up. I can't do it anymore. I'm a broken, messed up sinner and I need some help. Romans 7. Let's see if we'll go to the next slide. There we go. Romans 7, 18 through 20 says, For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. Now if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but it is the sin that dwells within me. Can anyone relate to that? Doing the last thing you want to do. You have everything. You know you're going to lose everything. You say, I'll do anything so I don't lose my daughter, or I'll do everything so I don't lose this job, whatever it might be, and then the next thing you know, you have a needle in your arm. I'm doing the very thing I hate. It's unmanageable. Step 1 is coming to the place where we realize we can't do it anymore. We can't do it anymore. Go to the next slide. Step 2, let's say this together. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to our sanity. I love that statement, came to believe. When you look through the Gospels, when you look through the story of Jesus' first disciples, the 12, and then it goes out beyond that. When you look at that, it's a story of them missing the point. It's a story of them misunderstanding over and over again who Jesus really is. And slowly over time, they come to believe that He is God with us. He is Emmanuel. That He is the Son of God. All the way up to the end, He has done all these miracles. He died on the cross. He rose from the grave, and He's ministering to them, and He's about to ascend to heaven. And there's a line in the verse that says, some of them believed. They came to believe. It's a process. You don't have to have it all figured out to start this journey. But when we come to believe that God can restore us to our sanity, wow. If you go to the next slide here, Matthew 11, 28 to 29, it says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for all your souls. This is Jesus speaking here. And He says, come to me when you're weary, and I'm going to give you rest. You can rest in me. He can restore you to your sanity. He will save us from our insanity. He will save us from the brokenness and restore us and give us rest and an abundant life. Try it one more time, see if it works. It worked. Step 3, let's say this together. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. In step 1, we had that journey of orientation, of discovering what the problem was, right? And that we had a higher power all along, and the higher power was our feelings, the higher power were our desires, the higher power was heroin, the higher power was our alcohol, right? It controlled us. And we finally started to surrender that and lay down and say, I can't do it, but you can. And we come here to step 3, and we start to recognize that there's a higher power. There's a highest power. And that if we give it all to God and let it go, our will, our lives. Matthew 4, 18 through 20 says this. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, He saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Jesus said, come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and they followed Him. Fishermen, they were fishermen. This was their identity. It's how they made their livelihood. This is who they were. Jesus says, come, follow me. And they drop their nets and they follow Him. Some of you need to drop your nets. Some of you need to decide, I can't do this anymore. I can't hold on to my old life. I need to lay it down. Some of you have relationships you need to lay down. There are things you're holding on to that are not going to work if you're going to truly be a follower of Christ. They're not going to work if you're going to try to live this life of sobriety and recovery, and you know you need to lay it down. You know you need to leave it behind. And it's time to do that. Matthew 6:24 says, no one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. You cannot serve disease. You cannot serve God and addiction, no matter what that addiction is. We have to lay it down. He calls us to come. He bids us to come and die. Step 3 is where many of us stop. We do that 1, 2, 3 shuffle. Who's honest here? Who's done the 1, 2, 3 shuffle before? Awesome. We have honest people in the room. Some honest people. Okay? Here's where many of us stop here. And we fall on our face and we stop before the miracle happens. There's a churchy word that I talked. This is for step 4 here. And this is step 4 through 11. I'm giving you an overview here, okay? So we're skipping over a lot of meat. But we only have 20 minutes, and so I'm not going to go on for 45 minutes up here for you. But there's a churchy word called sanctification. And what sanctification means, or to be sanctified means, to be refined, to be made pure, to be set apart, to be transformed. It's like if you're refining gold, right, or refining a metal, you heat it up and all the impurities come out and you separate that. When I see steps 4 through 11, it's a process of sanctification. It's a process of being made new, a process of being made holy. It's a process of becoming a new person. And if we skip that process, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's learning God's ways and putting them into action. So I have a couple verses here. 1 Thessalonians 4:3, it says, "It is God's will that you should be sanctified." And then it goes on talking about our sexuality and talking about ways we can be pure. Some of you need to go back and read that verse. 2 Timothy 2:20. I probably need to read the verse. 2 Timothy 2:21. "Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." Amen. So why is he doing this? He has a purpose for you, a plan for you. He wants to use you for good. He wants you to make a difference in this world. Stop being a consumer and start being a contributor. 1 Thessalonians 5:23. "May God himself," may who? "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ." Who restores us to our sanity? God. God. God does this. We surrender. We start to be willing to take some suggestions and work through this process and allow God to do the work. Who built Recovery Church? God. Not the pastors here. This couldn't happen by what we would try to do. We'd mess it up. We do mess it up most of the time. But God does it. Galatians 2:20. "I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me." We're calling you, we're calling me, every one of us, to a radical transformation. A radical transformation. When we're saying we're a follower of Christ or a disciple of Christ, the easy thing is to say a prayer. And that's wonderful. That's beautiful. But if it's just a prayer, and there's no application, there's no transformation, I don't know if I could call myself a follower of Christ, a disciple of Christ, if I'm not doing what he called me to do. There's more than some spiritual rabbit's foot, some get fire insurance. There's more to this calling. It's saying, "Yes, Lord, my old self might creep up, but I'm a new creation. That old self has died. I'm alive in you, and I won't go back." It's being transformed by the renewing of our minds. It's taking our thoughts captive and replacing them with His thoughts, with His ways. It's allowing Him to awaken our spirit, to recognize He is God, and guess what? You are not. That His ways are higher than our ways. That we're going to do His will, not our own. And when we do this, it brings us to the best step of all, step 12. Let's read this together. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. We carry, having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to other addicts, to sinners, to people with the disease of sin, to everybody. And to practice these principles in all our affairs. If you are a follower of Christ, if you are a Christian, you're supposed to be a little Christ. You're supposed to do as He does. You're supposed to be a disciple of Christ. You're not called to simply show up on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning somewhere. That's great. We're called for much more radical new life. Sharing a message that changes everything. Changes all of eternity. I want you to understand this. You are Christ's ambassador. It's not just the pastors who are up here. Every single person who calls them a follower of Christ is His missionary. We're all called to be His follower, to be His disciple. Matthew 28:18-20 says, Then Jesus came to them and said, All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Was some authority or all authority? All authority. So Jesus has all authority in heaven and on earth. He's God. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. He says, obey me. Obey me. And how do you obey me? You go and make disciples. You make disciples. How do you obey me? You go and you share what God has done in your life. How God has transformed you. And you direct them towards Christ. And you encourage them to share that with other people. And you teach them to obey. It's a crazy idea. I was reading a stat, and if one person listened to Jesus, and he actually went and made a disciple, shared Christ with someone, and explained to him what it meant to really be a follower of Christ, and said, you're supposed to go make a disciple. You're supposed to go share the gospel. You're supposed to go share with someone that, yes, you were broken and you're a sinner and life and your spirit was going to be separated from God. But Christ came and He lived a perfect life. And He died on that cross for the forgiveness of your sins. And you share that with a person, and the person accepts Christ, and they go out and they want to do what He says, and they share that with another person. If every single person he shared it with just did it to one person a year, and then that person did it with one person a year, and one person a year, if each of the disciples, it would start to multiply very, very quickly. And what's crazy is in about 34 years, by one person being faithful, and then the people him discipling being faithful, over 7 billion people would have been discipled on the face of the earth. That's more than everyone who exists on the face of the earth. So if we actually did what Christ told us to do, every single person in this world would have heard of the hope of Christ. But we keep it and we stay selfish. But guess what? That what the 12 and 12 talks about is you cannot keep recovery if you don't give it away. And guess what? Part of the Christian faith is about sharing our faith. Doing what the Master tells us to do. Sharing about this abundant life. So again, in review here real quick. So steps 1 through 3, we discover that we're powerless. We understand the unmanageability of our life. And we begin to say, I can't, but He can. And we surrender more fully over to His will and say, you know what, I am a broken mess. God, help me. And steps 4 through 11 is this process of sanctification, this process of being purified, being made new. And when we truly allow that to happen and be willing to do the work that happens and takes place, we become a new creation. And with step 12, we go, we do, we put it into practice. So, we share it with other people. We might begin to be a sponsor for someone else. We might just share our faith to someone and walk them through this process on a spiritual level. But we're all called on this journey of being a disciple. Will you join me in prayer?